Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And before I get the video started, I just want to say I'm not a financial expert, so don't take any of this and go make your stock purchases. I just wanted to speak on this from my perspective, give you my point of view on some of what these analysts are saying or, being quoted saying about AT&T. And again, they just had what I would call a awesome quarter, growth. They grew free cash flow, everything, all of their businesses are growing. And yet, a couple of days after that, the analysts are reporting back to investors that the outlook is not as good. So, as we saw them grow their stock about 4% the day of the quarterly earnings, they took about a 2% hit yesterday. So again, it's kind of an up and down roller coaster, and it's been like that for AT&T the past few quarters because these analysts are not letting them breathe a little bit. So they had a good Q1. I got to give them that. The quarter was good. The numbers look good. But these investors are still not bullish on AT&T. They have questions, concerns on everything. So I kind of wanted to show you guys one of the quotes or read it to you just briefly. So it says, it appears that management has chosen to focus its limited resources on HBO Max and fiber. What did they mean by limited resources? AT&T's gross capital capex is $21 billion. That does not sound limited to me at all. So to kind of put it in perspective, AT&T has three core focuses: HBO Max, wireless, fiber. That's going to be their main focus going forward. One of the others are going to take priority at some point. There's going to be a priority play. It should be wireless going forward because that is their bread and butter. It makes 80% of the revenue comes from wireless. But we will see in the future which takes priority. From what I'm calculating, and this is just an estimate, a ballpark range, and this is on the higher end. I'm not being conservative on this number. 40% right now of the total capex I'm predicting is going towards Time Warner and fiber. That's a pretty significant amount. So that leaves wireless with about $13 billion spending. And then, of course, they get a reimbursement for FirstNet and its coverage expansion. So that technically pays for itself. So that will be ongoing. From what I remember, they still get $1 billion this year and next year, and then that kind of stops. Then they have to start funding that again on its own. But until then, they still get, and that kind of balances out. So the coverage expansion that they still have to build is going to pay for itself because of the reimbursement. So between the year 2022 and 2024, they plan on spending $6 to $8 billion from the already guided capex. So that's not extra, that's not separate. It's coming out of the capex that they have guided. So if they do about $2 billion starting this year, if they do $2 billion this year, next year, 23 and 24, I think that makes, they make a pretty good move on C-band. And that leads me to the next quote that I wanted to point out. New Street has pointed out before that AT&T's plan for mid-band 5G, including C-band deployments timelines and capital spending trails behind that of T-Mobile and Verizon. To start off with that, T-Mobile is not deploying C-band at this point in time. That's going to come later. They bought C-band. They have it in their arsenal, but they're not deploying that at this point in time. They are not deploying it. So that's one negative from this quote. And then if AT&T maintains a $2 billion on C-band capex per year, then that's right around on par with what Verizon is spending on a yearly basis on C-band. So the only difference there is Verizon is doing it separately. So they're spending an extra 10 billion to accelerate C-band. So that's money that's not coming out of the guided yearly capex. Whereas with AT&T, it is coming out of the yearly guided capex. So I do think, although the volume of spending is the same, I do think Verizon is able to accelerate more because they're spending it separately. So there's still other segments of the wireless business that Verizon will be able to expand while they work on C-band. That includes millimeter wave, continuing rolling out fiber. But since Verizon is making a pure wireless play, they're going to outspend everybody in the industry, even AT&T on wireless alone. On wireless itself, Verizon will come out ahead on spending. So again, if AT&T does around 2 billion, maybe 3, depending, per year on C-band, that leaves them with around 10 to 11 billion for additional coverage expansion, densification, and I think that's what the priority will be. After C-band, I think densification is going to be priority because that will make C-band that much more effective for them. That's one thing they lack on a nationwide basis. I talk to people over and over. I look at it. I do research. They do lack densification. It's just a fact. And that's something that they're going to have to invest in big over the next few years. They were held back during the Randall Stevenson era because of all his purchases with Time Warner, DirecTV. So they were held back. The engineers were literally asking for more funding, and they did not get it. They just got enough funding to upgrade, modernize, add newer panels, and that was it. They weren't heavily rolling out small cell C-RANs and new macros at that time. They just weren't. Randall Stevenson wouldn't allow it. He wouldn't give them the green light. And that was John Donovan at that time. He was in charge of the wireless side, the mobile division. He wouldn't allow it. But now Jeff McElfresh, has that green light from Stenke, and I'm already being told that engineers are receiving levels of funding they haven't in the last 10 years. So now timing is not on AT&T's side because they're getting started late on the densification, and it's going to take them a little bit of time to work through that. Luckily, a lot of macros are already built with, thanks to T-Mobile and Verizon, so they can co-locate. So that'll speed up that process. But in some areas where they have to build new macros, brand new macros for densification, that's going to take a little bit of time. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think the analysts are really looking into that from that perspective. They just look at it from what they see on the outside. They're on the outside looking in, and I don't think a lot of them are getting good tips, getting good insight on what's really happening. And then I wanted to point out one other thing. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, Q1, great growth for AT&T. One of the analysts, again, is saying that the volume-oriented strategy has worked the past few quarters for AT&T, but is it sustainable? That's pretty much what they're cited what they're cited saying is it sustainable? And he's not the only one. I mean, there are other analysts that I've been reading that they're also saying the same. Is that growth strategy sustainable at volume? And yes, it is. AT&T has played the premium strategy that Verizon is playing now under John Donovan. He said, you want to be a part of my network. This is a premium network. You're going to pay to be on this network. So they rarely made any market corrections. Their pricing never changed during the LTE. And what happened? They started losing 200, 300,000 customers a quarter. The same that Verizon is going through now. What did Stenke do? He changed it up. They got together with the executive team, McElfresh, everybody, the CFO, the CTOs, they all got together. They said, do we have capacity to make this happen? And they said, yes. I was listening in on that town hall. Under John Donovan, they did not go for the MVNO's agreements. That all went to Verizon. So Stinky said, do we have enough capacity to make this happen? They said yes. Can we sustain this growth long term? They said yes. They said we can do it. And if we need to, we'll build more densification, which is happening now. And then they came out with the Elite plan, 4K content, HBO Max, and the rest is kind of history. They offered a promotion for new and existing customers, and the growth is there. It started in Q3 of last year. It translated to Q4. Q1 is big. I'm already being told Q2, they're growing already. So the strategy is working. Is it really going to be sustainable long term? Like speaking 1 to 2, 3 years from now? That remains to be seen. That's a guidance, an outlook that I don't even want to predict right now, because the landscape can change any minute. But AT&T is positioned very well to compete. So am I saying that they're going to be the best? They have the best network? I'm not saying that, but they're positioned very, very well to compete. The coverage is going to fix itself due to FirstNet. So the coverage is going to be there because it has to be. The first responders have to have coverage in a lot of the areas that they previously didn't have coverage. And that even goes for areas where Verizon and T-Mobile have no coverage, where AT&T will have coverage. So again, just keep that in mind as you read these comments. I will leave that, of course, in the description down below so you guys can check this out in its entirety. The only negatives that I have, the 3 negatives, and I think it's very valid. So as many of you have probably seen, T-Mobile is looking to control the narrative. They're creating a metric of catching up 5G. Is that even a real metric? The real metric should be catching up overall network size, to have the best network in size and performance. That should be the real metrics to chase. But again, T-Mobile is controlling the narrative, which creates the perception that they have the largest, fastest, biggest 5G network. I'm already hearing people talk about it. So T-Mobile is doing that, and Verizon and AT&T are kind of allowing it. So marketing-wise, that goes to T-Mobile. And that's something that even Verizon will have to get more aggressive on. They will have to get more aggressive on marketing. Right now, that does not look to be the case. Not at all. Marketing dollar-wise, T-Mobile is severely outspending Verizon and AT&T right now. Big time. They're running 4 or 5 ad campaigns right now. Verizon and AT&T, I haven't seen not one in the month of April. I'm sure there are some there. I've seen a couple on YouTube where Verizon is advertising its new promo, which is going to be a limited time offer. But T-Mobile is far more aggressive on marketing, and that allows them to control the narrative and create that perception. And that's an issue that AT&T is faced with. They have not been very good on marketing. Lily, it's getting old. They need something new. It's been they've used Lily since the last decade. They used her for little, then she was off air, then she came back on, and now they've continuously used her. They need to change that up. I really think they do. They need to change it up. Not to say anything bad about her, but they need to switch it up. Verizon, they need to as well. That setting that they have, it's getting boring. The white background, the people, they need to switch it up. They need something new, more exciting. They've been running that same ad. They just switch it up to whatever their promos are running at that time. They just include that in the commercial. So that's one of the negatives that I have for AT&T. And then the next one is customer service, and then that kind of ties into the third one, their back end, their billing system. They need to fix that. They need to invest heavy on that. But once they get that going, I think they will be okay. They won't be as bad as what the analysts are saying. But again, they're analysts, they're the professionals, so the investors are likely to listen to them, and that's the problem. So let me know what you think about that in the comment section down below. Look forward to reading your comments. This video was a little longer than I anticipated, but I just wanted to talk about that this morning and kind of get your take on that. So if you have been on the channel or you're new to the channel and you have not yet liked, shared, subscribed, make sure you do so. Hit the notification bell so you are notified when I do upload content. Make sure to follow the social media outlets for more updates and interactions. Thanks again for watching. This is Tyrone with Tech Life, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.